Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hi, Jackie-KASHIAN here. You're about to listen to the Dork Forest. You know the websites, dorkforest.com, thedorkforest.com. Jackie-KASHIAN.com has the links to everything. Merch, the new album, my other podcast, videos of me doing stand-up. Dorkforest.com has all the notes and the video that you can watch of this show. Traditionally, I tell you to donate to the Dork Forest, but it is November and December. I ask that you donate to a local food bank because you should. I don't know, you should do it all year, but what the heck? If you are donating to the Dork Forest using the PayPal link that gives every month, you can turn it off and turn it back on. You can do a matching to your food bank and donate to me as well. But all the money that I get from the donations from November and December, I'll give to my local food bank. And so I will get all of that sweet, sweet karma. So other than that, you can buy merch. You can, for Christmas, there's new t-shirts and stuff. But whatever it is, the Dork Forest, super fun, always available. I'm sure there's things I'm forgetting to say, probably Bandcamp, but let's get into the show. Hi, Jackie-KASHIAN in my garage with Tess Rafferty, who I've been making clap. And I have this to say, welcome back. You were just here. I swear to God, like 2 or 3 months ago, I forget what it was. And we talked about Italy.
Yes, I think it was fall, like September or something of 2020.
Yeah, and you have since been to Italy.
I did. I got back a week ago. Crazy, I know.
That's awesome that you actually went. You're like, because now that a lot of the protocols are lifted and we're vaccinated and we can travel, you can go places and do things.
Well, and what's crazier about it too is I was actually going for work. So it was just a bizarre thing where, hi, sure, I'd love to go to Italy for work. Who wouldn't, right? But just various things were happening very last minute. And I didn't actually get my tickets till 24 hours before we left.
Wow. Was that a deal? Did you get a deal?
No, it wasn't even a deal. Obviously it was just because of what was going on other ends and other various, complications and stuff. Not through anything of my own. Believe me, I don't like to travel this way, especially internationally in the middle of a pandemic.
Right. Yeah. There's still a pandemic going on. We're not in lockdown anymore, but there is still definitely a pandemic.
And there's new considerations with testing and vaccines and what each country needs. And if you're flying, like we are flying through the UK, so they have a little bit of a different form that you have to fill out, and the EU does. And I mean, the headline is that I felt very safe everywhere.
Okay, good.
Yeah, good. I felt safer there than I do here.
Was there any quarantines or anything, or
no, not with proof of vaccination.
Okay,
yeah,
that's great.
No, it was fantastic. But we needed a test. We had to test within 72 hours of landing before we left here. We had to test before we left there to come back into the country. Everywhere, they're very good about everywhere you go there, showing proof of vaccination to get inside a restaurant or a museum. Museums were doing temp checks, which was really cool. They have this like from the future iPad thing that you just smile at and it reads your temperature.
Yep.
And people were wearing masks and showing vaccine cards, and no one was yelling at us and calling us a snowflake.
Right. But I guess they were having riots in Rotterdam because they don't want to show their vaccination cards and wear masks. So I guess Rotterdam isn't quite as enlightened as Italy.
Yeah.
Or I guess England, but I don't believe any of that. I believe that there are banana heads in every country.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean, definitely.
Yeah, you can go 45 minutes north of Los Angeles, which I do every week. And everybody is constantly surprised I'm still wearing a mask. But I also haven't had a cold in 2 years. So they can fuck right off. Anyway, Tess Rafferty has a new book. Because when you were here, you talked about Italy and you talked about your first book.
Yes.
And then you wrote a novella. And now you have a second book.
A second full-length book that I wrote in the beginning of this year during lockdown. I've got a picture here for those of you watching the Zoom edition.
That's the Zoom on YouTube.
It's called The Red, the Fed, and the Dead. And it's the same cast of characters as the novella and the first book, Under the Tuscan Gun, which I also
Right.
I've got
Oddly
props.
enough.
I'm a prop act now. So the first book took place in the summer on the Tuscan seaside, and the second book is a holiday novella that takes place in Rome. Just a real quickie murder. You get in, get out, solve it. Merry
Holiday
Christmas.
murder. Merry Christmas.
And the third one takes place in it's more of a spring rainy season and takes place in Bologna, Italy, and the surrounding countryside, which is called the Emilia Romagna.
Okay. And and it's called The Red, the Dead, and the Fed and the Dead.
The Red, the Fed, and the Dead.
Because there's communists, there's federales, and there's dead people. What are we talking about?
So the city of Bologna, which is a really fun city. It feels to me like the Boston of Italy a lot, like a little bit of a second city type of a vibe. Rome sort of being more New York, although I'm sure Milan would have something to say about that. So Bologna is, they call it Lo Rosso, Lo Grosso, e La Dottoroso, I think, which is like translates in American or English rather to the red, the fed, and the learned, because Bologna is known for having people with communist sympathies. They're known for their food. Like, a lot of people think this region is the best food in all of Italy. And they're also known for having, I think it's the world's largest university. I mean, sorry, not large, oldest. Sorry. So that's where the learned comes from. So this is, instead of the red, the fed, and the learned, this is the red, the fed, and the dead, because
someone dies, because there's a murder, and because whenever Tess Rafferty meets somebody, it's murder, and and it's Italian murder recently. So what you wanted to dork out about is about this obsession you have with murder mysteries. And I like a murder mystery. I don't like a true crime thing personally. I like a lighter murder, like a Bones. Anyway.
Yes. Oh God. Yeah.
But do you read them? Do you watch them? What is it?
I devour them like they're pie the day after Thanksgiving. I watch, everything on PBS, BBC America. I've gone through, I've seen Endeavor countless times, gone through all the Prime Suspects, all the Morris and the Lewises. And I read them too, because I read every night before bed. So I found, I'm going to say probably about 5 years ago, might have been after November 2016, let's say.
Yeah, when you needed to check out a little bit, but also be entertained. And for some reason, solved murders where the culprit is found. And doesn't end up going free and getting elected to office. Right. Oddly enough, would be outstanding. Fiction, fiction. Yeah.
It's so very... I found that anything I was reading was so, triggering. I mean, truly triggering. Like, I would start a good book and then, all of a sudden someone rounds a kitten and you're like, for fuck's sake, I just want to be entertained and not, I've put down more books because something terrible happened in it. Right. And good books by great authors, but I'm not in the mood for the girl getting buried alive right now. Right. It's too close to what's really happening metaphorically in our country. So, I found that these types of series, very light series, or whether it's a TV show or a book, it's, you feel safe in them because they're going to catch the bad guy in the end. No kids are going to get drowned.
Right. It's not there. There will be some version of justice, even like the Jack Reacher novels. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, well, there's no due process, but it turns out the good guys win in the end. So I do like that there's due process in a lot of the British ones. I can't watch all of the British ones. Like, the only ones I've seen are, and I've talked about them 1,000 times, there's a New Zealand one called Brokenwood. Mm-hmm. There's an Australian one called Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries.
Oh yeah.
There's and then there's a couple of British ones I've seen. Endeavor.
Yeah.
And I just finished Bletchley Circle.
Oh yeah.
season 1 and there only seem to be 9 episodes.
Oh yeah, that's all they do. Endeavor, by the way, and I've got such the hots for Sean Evans, who plays the lead and who plays young Morris, in that I've now taken to call it Masturbate Mystery instead of Masterpiece Mystery. Turns out when you say that to someone who actually works for WGBH in Boston, that might be a little bit more inappropriate.
Right, right. There's a cough button, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to delay that."
Yeah. But they have just been putting out. It's like Luther. Remember, Luther was like 5 or 6 episodes the first season.
I never saw Luther.
Oh, Luther's great. It's a little grim, but you balance it out with Idris Elba. So, because again, I don't like anything too grim, but sometimes you watch it anyway.
Right.
But in Luther, you could chart Idris Elba's success as an actor by watching the subsequent seasons, because it went from like 6 episodes to 5 to 4. Like then there's like a season that's just 1 episode. And that's a little what they're doing with Endeavor right now. Is it, I think it was like around 6 episodes for the season. And then the last one was only 3. And you got to wait 2 years for the next one. That's going to be an episode and a half or something.
Right. Right. But I, the problem is we saw Endeavor in lockdown, man. We were jonesing. Sure. So we saw Endeavor, and then we heard that it was a prequel to Morris. Is that what it was?
Yeah, Inspector Morse.
So Morse, that's right. So we tried to watch Morse. Can't watch it in that order because it just made me sad. I was like, this is what this guy's life turned out to be? Boo. But if you go back, you're sort of full of hope in his potential.
Yeah. I make up fake stories in my head for like how him and Joan really got together.
Yeah.
And then she like died on their wedding day. Just to like make myself feel better.
Right.
Because Morris does, and I think I saw it in that order too. And it's hard to watch the early Morses only because they're so, they start in the 80s, I think. And it's just a different.
Oh, and the way they shot them and the ones that the Endeavor ones are literally beautifully shot. They're just that's what I kind of like about Bletchley Circle, is that it has that old timey. It's like Andy calls Bletchley Circle, "Oh, this is the show with all the nice coats. Those ladies are all wearing beautiful coats." He's a bit of a fashionista, Andy Ashcraft.
He knows their coats.
He likes that there's a nice long thigh length coat that the British like to wear because of the weather.
Oh yeah. Endeavor is gorgeous. And Sean Evans, again, because I can dork out about Endeavor, Sean Evans, the lead, directs a lot of the episodes.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, he also directs a lot of Casualty, apparently, that British show that I've never seen, but that's like their ER, or was ER before we were ER over here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're gorgeous and they're operatic, and Morse has that big thing where he loves the opera. So you've always got the gorgeous music, but it's funny to see it juxtaposed. I mean, now we're in the early 70s at this point. It starts, I think, in 1965 or 66, the backstory for this British detective, beloved British detective. And it's fun to see that juxtaposed with the pop music of the era.
Yeah, the contrast of it. It's but Morse does in Morse, does he listen to opera still?
Yes.
Or is he just, because he literally, that first episode I couldn't watch anymore, only because he went to have a beer in what was clearly what looked to be an off-track betting bar, and it did not look like the cool pub that they went to in the 60s.
No, he does like the drink, probably more than he should. I might be understating that. It's been a while since I've seen it in the series.
Yeah, the guy seems to be a bit of a lush.
Yeah,
but I will say that that when he drank with his captain, or with his DCI,
his
buddy.
gov, we'll call him.
Yeah. And then it was in an old English pub. This one, it's like he's partying in an airport, right? I mean, it looks like he's gone to the 7-Eleven to buy an adult beverage and just sit in like the Subway. And he's like, well, I'll get a Subway sandwich maybe. Oh, and a bunch of beer. And so, yeah. But
but I like the murder mystery parts of them. They were hard to figure out, they weren't obvious. I like the writing on them.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, because I was, like, I watched all of the Closer and Major Crimes during a lockdown. And,
wow. Okay.
I will just binge. I will eat my way through like a beaver on a wood pile. Like, I will.
What's the Closer? I forget who is with that.
It's Kira Sedgwick.
Okay.
And you could basically always figure out who did it, because if you just looked at all the guest stars as they introduced them in the first few minutes, there was like always like, okay, well, these are the people acting like they did it. So, they didn't do it.
They didn't do it.
So you were like, okay, so what's this actor doing here? If it was an actor, like either an actor who was too big to just, be an under 5 or something, or if it was a character of like, I'm not sure why we needed to meet the gardener of the person who died. That seemed really random. Then you're like, well, they're the killer. So
you start to see the pattern.
You totally start to see the pattern. Again, they're not meant to be watched like 8 on a Sunday afternoon because you can't go out of your house.
Right.
Although that's how we're consuming everything now. And sure. Even like I was watching something called the Majorca Files recently.
Oh, is that the one where the guy is a super neatnik and he gets transferred to Majorca because his coworkers can't stand him?
That's Death in Paradise, which I'm also watching.
Okay, we saw Death in Paradise.
I love Death in Paradise.
What's the Majorca Files?
The Majorca Files, it's sort of Death in Paradise but flipped. It's a woman who is very type A OCD, possibly on the spectrum, like a hard ass detective.
Bit of a pill.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how they would describe her. And she ends up transferred to Majorca. Like, I don't know what the program is where all these cops get to go to countries that aren't their
theirs. Yeah. You don't have any jurisdiction here, but we're transferring you.
Yeah, but come work.
We're looking for someone to take care of our criminals, which there was no crime before you got here, but for some reason,
and we can't do it ourselves, but it would help to have an English person. I don't know.
Yeah. Murder, She Wrote, that small town where there was a murder every week. So,
and you know what? I'm in. I don't need to know the whys and the wheres fors.
Right. I will suspend some disbelief to see some nice coats and to maybe, and I like them because there's sometimes the relationships are quippy.
They're well written. They're travel porn. I mean, Death in Paradise, gorgeous. Majorca Files, beautiful. And so her nemesis is this German cop. Again, don't know what he's doing, why he washed up on the Majorca shores. But running with it. So these two solve crimes together, along with the female, I guess, chief of the actual Spanish police who have jurisdiction.
Okay.
And, so she's in there. But I was watching one of them, and I'm so like, now, like, again, you watch enough of this stuff, and it's about this sort of doping scandal with a biker, a bicyclist, not a Harley Davidson,
right.
Angel. Yeah. And I'm like, well, obviously he has a twin. They're like, we sure he's doping, but he keeps testing positive. I'm like, well, clearly he has an identical twin out there who's doing the drug tests for him. Duh. Like, who doesn't see this?
Right. I have to say that once you start watching them, you will see that some of the plots, you're like, hey, we saw this one, this happened in that other one. And I wonder if the writers watch them and they're just like, there's only so many different, ways that some people and everybody looks really gross now. Like, I think that all the makeup, they can make dead people look super dead.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They can make, absolutely. I mean, it is like, look, as someone who writes this stuff as well as loves this stuff. And I don't want to sound like I'm being too hard on anything. It's kind of the reason why I focused on writing this stuff is because I'm the asshole who goes in to see Sixth Sense, and literally 2 minutes into the movie, I go, "Oh, Bruce Willis is really dead."
Right. He's a ghost.
Yeah.
I didn't know until the second beat. By the way, spoiler alert for the movie that's 25 years old. So, and Rosebud is a sled.
You will get letters, by the way.
I won't get letters. It's everybody. But the craziness is that, like, I didn't know that he was a ghost until they're sitting at dinner at the end of the movie, and the fork drops the second time. So I was like, oh, see, so I'm perfect for these things because I don't know who anybody is, and I know that it isn't the one that's obviously supposed to be, right?
Right.
Because that much I've followed, but when it does come to whoever is the murderer, I'm always like, oh, weird, okay, all right. And so I am like a child. I can watch them over and over again and go, I kind of remember. No, I don't remember. Who is it?
I've been rereading a book series right now that I think I've read twice before. Like I read once the first time, and then I think I've probably read most of it a second time. So this is a total guilty pleasure. It's called Agatha Raisin by MC Beaton.
Okay.
MC Beaton is this really fascinating character because she died late. She died a year or two ago. I think it was late in the year. I can't remember if it was late in the year last year or the year before. Okay. She was well into her 80s. She was publishing so many books a year, I can't even tell you. Wow. You just working. She has this series called Hamish Macbeth, which is a very popular, that's been going around, I think, for 40 years. It's about, I believe he's Scottish, but somewhere in the UK kingdom detective. It's also been made into a TV show. She writes some murder mysteries that take place in the Regency era, which I'm not a fan of, so I don't read those, but she writes, I think, just regular kind of romances that take place in the Regency area. She's got a bunch of different pseudonyms. And so I'm just kind of fascinated by her because she's super prolific. And again, a female writer of an era where it was hard for women to be writers, and worked up until she died in her mid or late 80s. Wow. And so Agatha Raisin is an interesting story. It's there's some hokiness in some of these cozy mysteries. Like I feel a little bit like I'm confessing a little bit, like, oh yeah,
welcome to the Dork Forest. There's, the safest space in the world to say that you like to read some prose that isn't in iambic pentameter. It's fine. Don't sweat it.
But one of the cool things is that it's about this woman. The book is about this woman in her 50s. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that she came from a rough childhood. She became a successful PR person. She made a lot of money. She sold off her thing. And then she kind of, takes early retirement to the Cotswolds and ends up becoming a private detective. Okay. And so for all the kind of hokiness, and sometimes she does things that are silly and whatnot that you kind of don't believe for someone who's a savvy businesswoman, but you're like, all right. But there's also this thing where, again, this woman who's, painting some of the characters or things with broad strokes, really kind of also does talk about like how this woman's invisible now because she's in her 50s. Right. And how, she gets negged by, younger people, or, or feels diminished by and dismissed by people because of her age and how she looks. And she still has sex. She still dates people.
When were these ones written? The Agatha.
They're still being written. I think they're on number 32 or something. Because now she's got like a guy who kind of took over the series for her.
Oh, okay. So, but there's dozens of them, but when did she start writing them? Like in the 60s?
No, it must have been in the 80s. Did you
start from the beginning?
I did start from the beginning, and I can't remember how I found the series. Amazon, really the algorithm just starts popping stuff up into your feed after a while. So I did start at the beginning. So, I would say probably 1990 is when they started, if they're on like the 32nd book or something. So 89, 90. And, so it's kind of like, for all it's, there's little moments of like a quiet revolution in there. With her, and she's not always the most appropriate character and other things, but it's and I've been rereading them because they're good for, oh, I'm on an airplane for 12 hours, or, when you're not going to focus on like, the winner of the Booker Prize when you're hitting turbulence.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's things, and there's something soothing about rereading. I love rereading. Quite honestly, it's one of my drugs of choice. And so it is, that actually sounds sort of right up my alley, because I like a mystery. I like a lightly written mystery, but that has kind of a nice socio-political, like weird, because I have a theory, and I've always tried to do a bit about it, but it never really worked, about how the worse the worse the movie, the more political the B plot.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah,
and there are very, very popular movies that have very serious B plots, right? Like if you look at Footloose, is a very dumb movie, but censorship is bad.
Right.
And and if you look at Patrick Swayze dancing,
Dirty Dancing,
keep abortion legal.
Yeah.
Right. And Blue Crush, weirdly enough, a right-wing message. True happiness comes through corporate sponsorship. So, I mean, it's a weird thing. So when I read some of these books that are considered sort of pulp or crap or not well, like it isn't the greatest, it isn't the Booker Prize.
Right.
Because those books, I think sometimes some people write those books with the big message, right? When instead, if you read Lois McMaster Bujold's space opera books, their message is, most of the Vorkosigan series is that there's no reason that ableism is really bad. So, and it has, a lot of sort of social justice stuff, and, sharing is a good idea, and education and women's rights and all of these things. And feudalism has its, could take a hike, but it has its purposes, and it has sort of historical lessons in it. And all of this stuff is belittled, but it isn't. I mean, there's no reason to belittle it. I mean, there is something of value in every. Whenever I think about someone reading, like, it used to be this big thing about guys. They're like, "No, I like Playboy for the articles."
Right.
And you're like, the articles were actually supposed to be really good.
Well, it's a really interesting. I mean, that's an interesting thing that I recently read and saw a documentary about the accounts of the bunnies, a lot of the bunnies who worked there at the time, and I read it up against, the Gloria Steinem piece. Like I just kind of, it's a long story how I got there, but I was kind of doing this as a whole, like all side by side. And, there was a lot of revolutionary things happening. And what I kind of took away from it was neither person's account was untrue of what was going on, but it was just a different spin and a different way of looking at it. And for a lot of these women, this job changed their life. This job
in a positive way.
In a positive way. And it's not something that I think, unless you can think about the context in which they were doing this, I think it's hard for people to wrap their head around. But there were women who were being interviewed who were married before 18. That was totally the norm. One woman had been married at 16 to her high school math teacher. She's like, finishing high school, I'm married to her teacher. And again, it's like things that we find shocking now, but it's like, this is the context of the time. So for her to get divorced and move to New York and end up, pulling
being
down
a bunny,
being a bunny and making her own cash for the first time in her life, it was revolutionary. It changed people's lives.
Right. I mean, the difference is the changes in civil rights for women specifically, since the advent of television, is actually been like it's been exponential. Like it took 1,000 years for women to get a bike, right? Or a split skirt or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it took, 60 years for us to go, hey, you shouldn't have to marry your math teacher. Right. Your math teacher shouldn't be sleeping with his student.
Yeah. This shouldn't be a conversation where this shouldn't be a conversation.
Yeah. So we've learned so much in the last 60 years, and people keep trying to shove us back in the box, but it's open now. So it's hopefully going to be very, very difficult to shove us back in the box. Yeah.
And and it's one of the things about Agatha Raisin, right? Is sometimes the revolution is just that they're showing a 50-something-year-old woman, and she's the main character of her own series, and people buy it, and that's all it kind of needs to be. It doesn't.
And that's what you get. That's what you get with that book. It doesn't have to be 30 layers of meaning, right?
Yeah.
And those books get prizes for reasons, but they are also sometimes very difficult to read. They aren't as easy to consume. And like, if you think about, all of this stuff with, like some of the murder mysteries, like especially the historical murder mystery, like Miss Fisher's murder mystery. I've talked about it a bunch in the last year and a half on the Dork Forest.
Read them all, watched them all. I might not have read the recent ones, but yeah.
I've read
fan.
Maybe about a dozen, and I've watched them all for sure. The movie is not good. But the TV shows were excellent, and she's always on the right side of history, right?
Yeah.
And it's that representation thing, right? It's why Hamilton, the musical, was so great, to have cast people who happen to be people of color as the founding fathers. You're like, because they're just people, but they were these egotists, these different egos, and these different, but they're also, it's George Washington, right? But you're like, but that's his personality. That's how he was depicted in history. So
yeah, it's like, I don't need to see anything else about how shitty women had it in the 20s. And that's where, there's a whole subgenre in here of the flappers who solve crime.
Oh, really?
And yes. And they seem to fall into two categories. There's one, like Miss Fisher, with where the Miss Fisher murder mysteries, and by the way, that's Carrie Greenwood. I did a whole, I basically looked over the last 5 years of my Kindle thing. I've got 28 different things listed with the authors, so I'd remember and whatnot, so I could credit everyone appropriately. Yes, it's Carrie Greenwood. So so the flappers who solve crime seem to fall into two genres. And one is this sort of more chaste, virginal flapper, which, I don't, whatever. Maybe other people around her are having sex, but she's not really having sex. But they're still drinking gin and doing the Charleston and solving crimes. And then there's more like Miss Fisher, where a lot of times these are women they're young, sexy women who got married to a much older man who may have been gay or just didn't want to have sex. And he was wealthy beyond belief. And then he dies.
Falls over in a heap, leaving her fabulously wealthy.
Fabulously wealthy. or in a place where because she's been married, she's
given the freedom of that.
She's given the freedom of having affairs. And Miss Fisher, who is hence the Miss, has never been married. She's just wealthy and given to having affairs. Like, some of these they're incredibly sex positive for the time. And, they're having love affairs. They're having multiple partners, they're not monogamous, and they're solving crimes and wearing fabulous clothes. And that's really all I ever need out of my entertainment for the rest of my life.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I do love her clothes are amazing. She's good at everything. And so are the other ones, the flapper ones, where they're more chaste? Who writes those?
There is one called the Royal Spinus series. And that's by Rhys Bowen, who writes other books as well. And that's more, I guess it's technically more in the 30s. Like I've actually broken this down to time periods.
Sure.
Probably one of the, there's a couple that are very well written. Maisie Dobbs is a series, and that's like, we have just gone through, that's Jacqueline Winspear. And, and she's quietly a revolutionary too, Maisie Dobbs is. And she starts off as someone who starts off in service in the aughts or the teens of the early 20th century, becomes a nurse on the battlefield of World War I. A lot of these women in these books have they've either served in the Office of Secret Services, kind of like Bletchley Circle at some point. They were either spies or nurses in one of the wars. Right. Very common thread. So she goes and she serves as a young teen, like a late teens, early 20s girl in the war, comes back, starts her own detective agency. And these books she's been writing these books for so long now, Jacqueline Winspear, that they're not out now at World War II. As it would turn out. They've been through all the 20s and the 30s, and now it's World War II.
And are they the same? Is it the same character who is the detective?
Yes, Maisie Dobbs is the detective. That's her name.
And now she's in her 40s, and she's a nurse again, or she's a spy again.
Yes,
in World War II.
Yeah, she's. Well, I don't want to spoil it if anyone wants to read it, but yeah. But yeah, she has. She's still adventures. Working. She falls in love. Yeah, she's still working. She falls in love. She keeps a toe in all her various specialty businesses.
Sure.
She met a man
I'll
married.
Read those. Yeah.
I turned my husband's mom and aunt onto them, and they are enjoying them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So and they're more historical. And there's like the Maggie Hope series is a big historical one that's involved spies during World War II in Britain. Okay. A lot of women spied, apparently.
Right. There was steady work for women spies in World War II. Yeah. And it's so interesting coming out of lockdown, the number of, like, I think this week's episode, or it'll be 2 weeks ago now, but was with Ophira Eisenberg, and she has been reading what she's been reading as she's like, I can't, there was an author named Lawrence Block. Mm-hmm. And Lawrence Block, I guess, and I want to read those, and they're just like, they're about criminals. They're about like the burglar who has a heart of gold, or who is like super smart and gets away with things. And I was like, well, I'll read those too. I mean,
yeah, there's like Donald Westlake.
Donald Westlake. He wrote the Dortmunder series that in the 70s and I think the 80s, and it was famously made into a movie with Robert Redford called The Hot Rock, Robert Redford and George Siegel. And so it's the criminals that you side with because, in your head, they look like Robert Redford. Exactly. All of a sudden, Robert Redford's at work right next to you. And you're like, hey, take whatever you'd like. And, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you seen the Brokenwood series at all, or the New Zealand? It's Colombo set in New Zealand.
I have not seen that, although I'm sure I will. I saw the one with who's the Dr. Fantastic, or what's the guy from Ian something? He was in the original, not the original, but he was in one of those Fantastic Four.
There was some doctor murder. It was sort of like Quincy.
Is it one of the Fantastic Four a doctor, and doesn't he become invisible or something?
No, I have no idea what that is.
So it's an Australian actor, and I'm trying to remember the name of the series.
There was an Australian doctor show that we saw. What the heck was that? It was I'm sure somebody is yelling at their iPod, their old-timey,
and somebody's
iPod.
Correcting my poor knowledge of the Fantastic
Marvel?
Four franchise.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is I don't know enough about the Fantastic Four. I'm only reading the Dan Slott one right now. It's actually quite good.
His name is Ian Grufford.
Oh, did you find him?
I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
The Dr. Blake Mysteries with Craig McLaughlin.
Harrow was the name of the TV show I'm thinking of, but I have seen Dr. Blake as well. And
the Dr. Blake mysteries, I liked it until there was like until his housekeeper. Yeah, I think I liked the first 2 seasons, and then his housekeeper got shafted or something, and I was like, I'm good. You don't know what you're doing.
The mystery is, when is the doctor going to figure out that he's gay?
Yeah. Right. And and his wife is in China with their daughter, and his wife dies, and his daughter reunites, and you're like, dude, he's just not that into you, is all I could think. I didn't think he was gay. I thought, he's just not that into you. You're not for him.
Into the housekeeper.
Right, into the housekeeper. So it was, so I saw those, but Brokenwood is actually, it's kind of cool because it's set in wine country.
Oh, I'm listening.
New Zealand. Right, exactly. Now I'm paying attention. And it's also ongoing. So I think there's 4 or 5 seasons of it. So if you have run out of things, I think it's on BritBox or Acorn or something like that. It's called Brokenwood.
Brokenwood.
Yeah.
And I'm making a note of that.
And I was sad when it ended. And then there was a whole new season that came out as lockdown continued. And so then we were watching it in real time, like every Monday night. And it was like, is there a new Brokenwood? And I was like, oh my God, there is.
It's incredibly satisfying.
It was very satisfying when you had a weekly date with a show. It's kind of awesome. Like we were watching the Great British Bake Off, and that has a weekly vibe to it. And then also all of the Marvel TV shows did it.
Yeah. Friday night, this last 6 months or maybe longer, became a really big TV night because it was WandaVision.
Yep.
There was
Loki.
Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso was doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Bake Off Friday night. Morning show was Friday night.
Right. It was almost like when we were kids.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh, Thursday night, I got to watch the thing. And, it's Friends, and then Seinfeld, and, it was like that. So
it was the must-see TV block.
Right. I do wonder if there's, now that they're, I don't think they're in lockdown in Britain anymore. I'm waiting for the next episode of something called Ghosts, which is a British sitcom that, and I've been talking about this for weeks as well. Hi, Rangers. Ghosts is essentially, they sold a TV show, an improv troupe, an entire improv troupe sold a TV show. About a couple that inherits a mansion in the British countryside.
Oh,
and,
yes.
And then they're doing an American version of it, but the British version of it is adorable. And the chemistry between the improv troupe is obvious, is historical, right? I mean, they've been working together for a decade. And so there's all of these ghosts that have been over there's a Neanderthal, and there's a member of parliament from the 80s without his pants on. And there's a Boy Scout troop leader with an arrow in his neck. And there's Lady Button, who was one of the original owners of the mansion. And there's a bunch of different characters. There's a Regency poet, and it's very silly. Yeah. And so
what can you watch this on?
That one's on HBO Max.
Oh, really? The original?
Yeah, Ghosts. Yeah,
cool.
The original's on HBO Max. Yeah.
I knew it was a new TV show. I think it's CBS or something, but I didn't realize that it was originally a British show. So now I want to watch the British show.
Yeah, the British show is super. It took probably 2 episodes for me to go, because it's super contrived, right?
Right.
She hits her head and then she can see the ghosts. Prior to that, they cannot see the ghosts.
I'm fine. There's got to be a convention. Yeah.
Right. There has to give me a reason for a suspension of disbelief, and I will probably buy into it. It's I just want to be entertained.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like we all got here. Like it's funny because when you take meetings and you're pitching mysteries and stuff, they're like, well, what's what's the reasoning that like she's so good at this, like, and that she keeps getting these cases week after week? And it's like, because people watch this week after week. So someone's going to die. That's the convention that we've all accepted. You know, everyone's looking to make it more complicated. Like maybe she's dating a cop, or maybe her father's a lawyer. Like maybe there's.
I loved Castle. Yeah. He was a mystery writer. For some reason, he's friends with the mayor, and the mayor insisted that the cop hang out with him.
Yeah.
And, so then the best looking cop in the whole wide world, that woman, has to hang out with Nathan Fillion, who's very handsome and cute, and they solve crimes. I'm in.
I'm in. Yes. I don't care how we got there. If the second half of that sentence is they solve crimes, I don't need a lot up front. You know, it's same thing with your show. She sees ghosts. I don't care if she fucking stuck her hand in a toaster and stepped in a puddle of water at the same time. Like, make it work.
I want that to be what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so what are you, are you currently watching anything that's new, or are you mostly doing a rewatch? Like, I'm doing Death in Paradise. I'm on season 2. This is my first go at that. Well, I wait for Endeavor to come back sometime in 2022. Right.
So, and I'm really enjoying Death in Paradise. And I can't talk about this book enough, because this is an excellent book as well as being an excellent mystery. But I don't know if you've heard of the Thursday Murder Club books. Richard Osman is the writer, and he's, I guess, a presenter in England, right? I think he hosts a quiz show or something.
Right.
Sorry if he's out there listening to the Dork Forest that I don't know more of his. I don't have more of his bio committed to memory. He wrote this book last year called The Thursday Murder Club. He just came out with the sequel, and it's about
isn't Endeavor's named Thursday?
Yes. But it's nothing to do with him.
Nothing to do with that. This guy has a Thursday Murder Club book series. The first book's called The Thursday Murder Club, and it's about people living in a retirement community who go through old case files every week. And that's why they're called the Thursday Murder Club. They get the common room. They book it under something called like Japanese opera fanatics or something, so that everyone leaves them alone. And they basically stumble onto a current mystery, and go about solving that in both books. And they're just really delightful, just fun. It's funny. It's sometimes not too much. It's exactly what I want in a book. It's really funny. It's wonderful characters. Every once in a while they kind of ponder something about life, but in just enough. Like, just check in. Yeah, just check in. Yeah. You got any big issues you want to think about for a second? Not too long. Just give it a page and a half, and then let's get back to it.
And then let's move on. Yeah. And so I just like, it's the type of book that I wish I had written. Like, honestly, I can't say more about it than that, is that I wish the murders are really, the murder and the mysteries are really satisfying. Mm-hmm. The story and the characters are funny and lovable, and and they're people, at the tail end of their life or close to it, and so they have thoughts sometimes that are really interesting about what that's like.
Yeah, and there's only one book so far.
2. He just came out with the second book in October.
Okay,
yeah. And it's the type of thing where every time I say to someone, listen, I have a book for you to read, they go, is it the Thursday Murder Club? People are really into it.
Okay.
They're delightful. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Cause I haven't heard of it yet. And I know that because I have been trying to get my mother-in-law to read a couple of different series, and she's on board because Andy's stepmom, who passed, she really liked a very violent serial killer kind of vibe, where it was more of it might be a Dean Koontz or or they were like, I know Fran read all the Jack Reacher books and she turned me on to those, and I didn't mind them. I mean, I probably read a dozen of them or 10 of them. And, but eventually you're just like, okay, he gets laid around page 445. And, and you're like, that's good. I'm glad glad it's working out for him. And so I like to mix it up a little bit. Like she's the 6th book in my favorite series of Sherlock Holmes fake Sherlock Holmes, like reimagining of Sherlock Holmes, very popular. The
Yeah,
reimagining of Sherlock Holmes.
Well, is this the ones that Anthony Horowitz is doing, or is this someone else?
This is someone else, a woman named Sherry Thomas,
Oh,
who writes romance novels that I don't like very much, but these Lady Sherlock books, I freaking love them.
yeah.
Pieces. And
Lady Sherlock. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called the Lady Sherlock series. Study in Scarlet, Study in Scarlet Letter or Scarlet Woman. This is the name of the first one, and the sixth one just came out, and it might be the best one.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because you finally get to meet Moriarty, and they like 1, 3, and 6 are my favorites, and 2 and 4 are okay, and 5 is great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great. I'm writing that down. I want to make a note of it for
yeah, you would like them. I want to read this Thursday Murder Club, and I want to do Maisie Dobbs.
Maisie, I can seriously, I was going through the list. It's like there's a couple that I'm like, did I read that? Like, just again, it's just that type of thing. I want the voices to stop in my head before I go to sleep. Otherwise, I'm not going to go to sleep. Like I want that script that runs all day long about all the terrible things that are happening and all the anxiety and what's going to go on.
And what you can do about them and what you cannot do about them. And you're like, I got to go to bed. I got to go to bed.
I got to fall asleep. I got to fall asleep, and I got to fall asleep with something that's, the people I know who are like, oh, I watch Mad All before bed. I'm like, how is that?
My mother-in-law would watch the news and does watch the news right before bed. And whenever she puts it on, when we're staying over there, I always go, I'm going to bed with a book, going to put some headphones in and not hear about whatever horrible things I like. And I've said this, and I might as well engrave it on the inside of my eyelids. I like my news 2 weeks late with a lot of analysis. Pony Express. Very sad that I don't live in the days of the Pony Express, because all I can do is help the person in front of me, and then hopefully that's a ripple effect. And I try to be a good citizen on the global level as well, but I can really only affect that thing right in front of me. So
well, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, in the rage we're all feeling in the wake of the Rittenhouse verdict, and the rage we all feel in the wake of everything, right? What's going on in Texas and all that kind of stuff. And I just come back to like, what's really going to matter, or one of the things that I know will have an effect, is me focusing on the midterms, me focusing on local elections. Like that's where a lot of this change is going to be possible, and where it's going to happen, or where it gets worse. I understand that change does not happen as quickly as we would all like it to happen. I also understand that if we don't make sure that we hold the House and hold the Senate and maybe even take back more seats in both, it's not going to, it's going to get worse. And so I just go, well, what? I understand the anger and I feel it, but I just have to come back to like, okay, these are tangible things that you can do, and you can do other things and raise awareness. And sometimes voicing your anger online is an important way to,
but not right before
signal
bed.
To others, not right before bed.
Right before bed, you need to be well rested so you can fight the next day, right?
You need a little Agatha Raisin. You need some Miss Fisher.
Yeah,
you need
little Agatha Raisin.
Yeah, you need the flappers who are virgins, the flappers who are whores, like whatever. Like you just need them all. Like
right. You just need you need some a little light, and for some reason, the way humanity is, it's murder mysteries. I don't know why.
I think that it's like, okay, I know that the bad guy's going to get caught. He's going to see justice. And a lot of these characters are very colorful. A lot of these characters, there's either an escape in a period, specifically a lot of Victorians. We haven't even gotten to the Victorian midwife who solves crime. She's a thing,
we just started Call the Midwife, which is a TV show.
Sure, I've seen some of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And Andy's like, it seems sad. This seems to be a lot of sort of noble rich people helping the poor. And I was like, It might be that. We don't know. We've only 2 episodes in, but but if that's all I can find, but so what I really am looking for is because I couldn't get into Olive and Thyme.
Okay,
right?
I'm not. Yeah, I don't think I.
That was a British old lady murder mystery.
Oh, right.
TV show.
Mhm.
But The Closer, I might try The Closer or Major Crimes.
Major Crimes is the sequel to The Closer, and I actually ended up liking Major Crimes better.
Okay.
And it might just be that it was more of an ensemble cast at that point, and it's
Is it American or is it where?
they're both American.
Okay.
Kira Sedgwick is the lead in The Closer, and then so it's really focused on her, and not that I don't think Kira Sedgwick's a great actress or anything, but it became a lot of the same characters stayed on for Major Crimes, and it became more of an ensemble. Just I think focused more on the murder mystery and less on the main character in her life. And
okay.
And who's the Mary? Forgive me, dorks in the Dork Forest. The Mary actress from Battlestar Galactica. She plays the president.
Don't know. Never saw.
She's
it.
got that like.
But everybody
really great
knows her.
voice. Yeah.
Is she in the Major Crimes?
She's in Major Crimes. Yeah. She's like the main cop lady.
So if I liked if I liked Endeavor and Miss Fisher, what should I also be watching?
That's a really good. I mean, you've seen Death in Paradise, and I'm really liking that. I saw this show. This is so there's 2 shows. One is just fun. It's not necessarily a murder mystery, but it's procedural. It's called Hustle. And it's a British show, and it's like 7 or 8 seasons. You can get on Amazon, and it's about con artists. But again,
Is it Leverage?
It's before Leverage.
And probably they base Leverage on it. I love Leverage.
Yeah, it's Adrian Lester. I don't know if you know who he is. He's
No.
There's some amazing talent in it. And the idea is that they only con rich assholes.
Oh, right. So it's Leverage.
Yeah. So you don't feel bad for the people they're conning, and you want them to succeed, and it's fun, and they play different characters every week as part of the con. So and like, again, you feel very like, oh, I know this is going to turn out well for everyone. Yeah. And I feel very safe in this show. And the other show I was going to suggest, oh my God, I had it. And okay. So this is kind of a goofy watch, but also fun, is called New Tricks. And this ran for 12 seasons. I can't remember if it's on BritBox or Acorn. I think I saw it through Amazon, but I don't remember how.
Right.
And the idea is that, and it's got this hokey, very country and Western theme song that you just have to like, that you're like,
yeah.
But the idea is that it's a squad of retired cops being led by this woman who, of course, had a career misstep. So now she's running a squad of retired cops. And
right.
They're doing cold cases, basically.
Okay. That sounds right up my alley. Yeah. I'm watching that for sure.
Oh, good. It's
cool.
And they're it's one of those things like the characters grow on you. Again, it's a show where all even the main female lead isn't like she's solidly, I would guess, in her 40s when it starts. Right. It runs for 12 seasons. So you're kind of like, this is again older people solving crimes, or what we don't put on TV in America.
Yes.
Can you make the retired cop 35?
Yes. Tess Rafferty, I have to say that this has been an hour. We're we've done it. Everyone should go, and it will be, what's your handle? Handle? My
handle on Twitter is @Tess Rafferty.
There you go. And that will be in the notes.
Yeah. And Instagram, it's @the Tess Rafferty. And you can get my books. Just Google me, my author page, I guess they call it, on Amazon will come up. You can get my books there. So on Kindle and in paperback.
And I hope you love them, because they're super fun, and it's all about Italy.
Yes.
It's all about murder. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for getting me on, Jackie. I really appreciate it. You have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
And Rangers, you know the rules out there. Take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat. My hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that?
If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?